Okay.
Hello, everybody. This is Dr. Dan Cardellichio. I want to welcome you to another segment of Destination Health Podcast, Finding Dysfunction in a Dysfunctional World. We have a repeat guest coming on, my friend, IFBB Pro, Kelly Nayukas. Kelly, how are you today?
I'm great.
Awesome. So let me ask you, the first question is, did the Steelers win yesterday?
Actually, I didn't watch. It's terrible. I'm so busy. I wasn't watching.
You weren't watching? Well, the Giants lost. So I think on the first podcast, I said we're not going to talk football, so we're not going to talk football again. So we're going to move on from that. So Kelly, how are you? How are you doing during this time of pandemic and so forth? What's going on in your life?
Well, thankfully, I live in the state of Florida with the wonderful Governor DeSantis.
Yes.
Yeah, and it's been really great. I mean, there is a little bit of a change with the pandemic, a little more masks, but for the most part, we don't have as restricted environments as it is depending on where you live at.
It depends upon where you live at, and I'm going to leave that alone because I'm going to leave it alone for now. So anyway, we were discussing before we came on the air today, we were discussing, of course, you know somebody, you're becoming friends. We spoke probably for about an hour. We did the podcast before we even did the podcast, right? And right, it always happens that way, Kelly.
Oh, always, yeah.
And one of the things that I want to discuss with you, and I want to get your thoughts on, are eating and eating disorders, because you being an IFBB pro, and I have clients that are IFBB pros, and of course I'm not going to mention anybody's name, so everybody who's my client, we sign confidentiality agreements. There's a doctor-patient relationship, and of course I'm not going to mention them. But when they come to me, they got like four basic food groups. Now that I'm thinking of it: chicken, tilapia, broccoli, and sweet potatoes / potatoes. And it becomes very difficult to eat those over extended period of times. I've done podcasts that individuals have said that are pros, and all sorts of pros, that they get these eating disorders because you have to look good on stage. You don't have a wide variety of food. And you've been doing this for a long time. You've been a coach for a long time. And I find this to be a very interesting conversation. So let's start off. What are your thoughts on this?
So I think, the restrictive type of eating, it tends to work because why people, you basically eliminate a lot of variables by sticking to those basic foods that are low in fat, very low in carbohydrates as far as broccoli, sweet potatoes. It's easier for a lot of people to just know that they're consuming that versus having to read the macros on the back of a box. So sometimes people don't want to have to do that. And there are way more foods than you can have that can get you in the same exact shape and be just successful.
Yeah, and we were talking about that because you just had a vegan that was on stage, right? Tell us about that. What was that like, training that person, helping that individual out? What was their diet like? What were your recommendations to that individual?
So vegans typically have to have a combination of plant proteins and carbohydrates. Typically anything with a plant or grains, legumes are all going to have some sort of carbohydrate in it. So you kind of have to give them macros to work with and a certain food group. So let's say when you break a normal macros down, you'd say, okay, proteins, you got chicken, turkey, steak, fish, there's no carbohydrate involved. When you're doing a vegan diet, you have to kind of look at the content of both. So when you do write the macros out, you're giving them, they could actually get a little more variety in their foods, but they're going to be counting their protein that's in the different plant proteins, or sometimes soy, which, it's up to the person's pick.
Right.
But they can pick from a variety of things. So they're getting all those different types of, legumes and grains in their diet. So they're getting this nutritious variety where and I also have them salt their food too. So that's not pulled out either, because sodium is very important
Right.
in limited amounts. But yeah, to me, so she got very lean. She's in just as good a shape as somebody that was doing animal protein. With her, the good thing is that she can follow macros very well and break them down from the labels. So I think that is important. If somebody wants to have more variety, they have to understand how macros work, so that they can have that variety and not worry about, stepping outside of the chicken, broccoli, sweet potato, like 3 basic food group.
Yeah, it's kind of like you eat that from 10 years. Is that where the eating disorder comes in, or is it the training along with the eating? Is it a combination of both?
I think,
You may be doing cardio twice a day, where you may be working out a couple of times a day, doing resistance training. Maybe is it a psychological aspect? I mean, we're not psychologists or
right.
psychiatrists, but we can say, is it that maybe you want to have some fish besides tilapia or something like that? Is it a combination of everything that brings you to some type of eating disorder? And does it continue on after you retire?
Right. So, I mean, I've been through both sides of the spectrum. I
Hmm.
used to stay to those basic foods myself in my earlier years.
Hmm.
And I liked living in that regimen because it was a sense of control.
Hmm.
And I think what happens with a lot of athletes is they have that control. They know that they're going to eat 5 or 6 meals a day,
Hmm.
and it's going to be these basic foods, and it's every 3 hours,
Hmm.
and their training and their cardio and everything you've been taught over the years is like, it's like this regimented type of eating style. So here's
Hmm.
what I think happens. Um, some people go in with eating disorders before they even start competing. And those people usually
Interesting.
have a tougher time
Hmm.
after shows because of the visual change in their physique in the mirror. So that's a whole different topic. I think when people get eating disorders from competing, I think that comes from the fact that they have all this regimented style of training, eating a consistent basis for maybe 3 to 6 months. And then once they're done, if they don't continue to do an off-season type of style plan, they feel like they are lost because the regimen is gone.
Hmm.
And now they don't know what to do with themselves. So sometimes people start to eat outside of those restricted foods, start gaining weight, some of it fat, some of it water retention.
Hmm.
Some of their hormones are off balance, which is just causes a raise in estrogens.
Right. Sure.
I think what happens is it's the combination of losing the regimen post competition season and not knowing like where to go. So you start looking at yourself in the mirror and not knowing, like, your whole self identity sometimes revolves around how you
Sure.
look. That's what I think starts to happen with competitors.
Right, because you're on stage and that's your life. That's what your career is at that point in time. So, you're having people judge what you look like. And, if you're going to be in this sport, then you're going to have to look good. You want to look good. And
Yeah.
you said a couple of things that are really interesting to me is that once it's done or once the competition's over with, you don't know where to go. Is that when somebody indulges too much because they're like, it's kind of like giving my 13-year-old, that broccoli every day. At one point in time, she's going to want chocolate ice cream with Jimmy's on it
Exactly.
and syrup
Some cheesecake. Right. So true. So I think that has to do with it. I mean, it's like even post show, like the week after a show, your body is most receptive to glycogen, and it wants that so badly since you've been depleted
Right.
that once you eat, so a lot of people go and they have alcohol after a show.
Hmm.
That's a total no-no. Really is, it's not a good thing to do. And if you don't kind of like add more water to your post-show diet
Hmm.
of, cookies and cakes and donuts like everybody wants to indulge the night after, if that continues on, your body is really hungry for those carbs and those excess calories that it's like a sponge. And you might not be literally gaining fat, but the rebound look,
Right.
I think that screws with people's eyes and their
Right.
head, in the mirror.
Right.
And they're like, and I've had this happen with a lot of competitors post-show, have a breakdown. And it just turns, either they can recover from it or it turns into a downward spiral.
So how do you help your clients get through this? Because I can see, where you're competing and you're working out and you're eating appropriately, and then when it's over, kind of your insulin, your cortisol is all over the place, like you said, and your body's craving certain foods. How do you transition your clients from that phase to the next phase?
Well, typically I make sure my clients keep me aware of how much water they're taking in up to the show. So that's important to know, and also sodium. So if someone's adding salt, then I'll know post show you're going to have those indulgences, right? So if you do a week of splurging, obviously it's a ton of sodium that you weren't having, it's a lot of sugars you weren't having, and your body needs to flush it. So typically what I'll do is I'll have them up their water, and I'll even have them take hot baths, Epsom
I do
salt
the
baths.
same. Yes.
There you go. I have them do Epsom salt baths, anything that's going to draw the excess water out
Yes.
of the system, because they're going into like this downward spiral. So, and if they were taking a lot of sodium, and I typically have them salt, I'll tell them, do not salt your food. There's already sodium in food, but if you keep adding salt, you're just going to prolong this after effect of, cortisol, aldosterone, throwing that all off balance.
Oh, throwing it all off balance. I agree with you. So we're talking about the physical aspect of this. Let's talk about the mental aspect of it now. I find this equally as fascinating. What's going when you were competing and you were done? What went through your mind? You're going to indulge. You're going to do a little bit of this, whatever you're going to eat. What is it that went through your mind, and what do you recommend to your clients for upstairs?
So back in the day, I used to never get off the diet. I would stay on because I was so into it and I wanted to be that way year round. When I was in my 20s, I was really bad. So I kind of had an eating disorder where I wouldn't allow myself to indulge, because it was my form of control, but it was also kind of like, I like the look, right? So I never thought it would create a health issue until I was in my mid 20s, where my electrolytes were off balance. And from doing low carbs, I ended up being in the hospital and I had to get an IV. And I think that kind of opened my eyes to, what am I doing? Even though people were like, but you eat so healthy. And it was like, yeah, but that's all I eat. Like, I never step outside this, and I over exercise, and my cardio was high. I was doing like an hour cardio a day, but my body fat was low already. So it was like kind of just eating away at my muscle, and I wasn't aware of the detriment to my body. So what I tell my clients is to have a few days, enjoy yourself, and we're going to increase your calories, but we're going to do it in a slow way. So you can have these days free. Don't even contact me. I don't want you to. I said, live life for a couple of days.
Right.
You'll be hungrier to get back to the gym, but this way it keeps them more balanced with it. And I tell them, I'm like, you're gonna look different. Your body's gonna respond differently. So I said, do not worry, because that does not pile on you overnight. Real fat does not pile on you the next day.
No, it takes time. It takes time. But that's where the mental aspect of it comes in. I'm at whatever 5% body fat, 7, whatever that is, and you want to remain there, because I know that there are individuals that say that they follow it, 24/7 for decades at a time, and I go like this, no, because I see you out at a restaurant and you're having a bacon cheeseburger or something like that, so you're not following it, and it's very difficult to follow something like that forever. If I have a patient that comes into me, Cal, that's had 2 heart attacks, of course I'm going to be really strict. I mean, there may not be room for wiggle when it comes, but I try to add in many different protein sources and carbs and healthy fats so that they have a variety of foods, so they can make a delicious meal, but yet have some variety
I agree.
going on, right?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, you can't just eat, like we were talking about tilapia. I mean, that's a very easy fish to get. It's a cheaper fish, but it's not a great fish for you.
Not a fan
No, but
at all.
honestly, I have done tilapia and I look better if I really want to like tighten up for the couple 2 weeks before a show. I'll just switch what I was eating protein wise to like
Mhm.
ground turkey breast, and I feel like that's very low in hormones compared to chicken, and very low in water. So like I notice when I cook it, my body tends to look leaner, but I'm not like I'm not stripping myself of like these
Right.
options up to a show until maybe 2 weeks out. So back in the day, I used to do like that type of eating for 4 or 5 months straight, and I got used to it, but not everybody can do that.
Right.
Very,
Sure.
yeah.
So what was your percent body fat when you were competing?
For my shows, I tend to get down to 5 or 3%.
I was gonna say, I look at you and I'm saying 3 to 5%, right? With
Yeah,
your physique and your body frame and all of that, I'm saying 3 to 5%. Wow. And as a female, you do need a certain amount of percent of body fat because that
to be
helps
healthy.
regulate hormones and so forth and so on. So it's got to be at a certain percentage at one point in time. Because as you get older,
Yeah, it's not good.
your body changes. What are you now? What's your percent body fat now?
Probably about 14,
Yeah,
13% maybe.
I think that's great. I think that's great for you, right? I mean,
Yeah,
that's comfortable. You still
that's
have the
that's comfortable.
yeah, you still have the lean look. You're still muscular. You're not going to step on stage tomorrow. You
No,
know,
the thing is that like I'm lucky in my physique. I tend to stay lean on my legs, which not every woman has that ability to do. If I gain weight, it's usually around the stomach area.
right?
So that's just always been where my fat stores are. And I'm aware of that. So I don't, a lot of people ask me now, like, how do you get past that? If like once you get off season, like, how do you look at yourself and you're okay? I'm like, because you have to appreciate all the seasons that you are living. Like, you can't just, I don't get out of control. That's the thing. Like, if I start to see anything that's too much for me, then I'm like, I'll
Right,
back off. But
right,
if I'm not going to sit there and not have cheat days and not have like ice cream if I feel like it, if I feel like I can have it. If I plan on having a crazy meal,
right,
I'll probably do shakes that day. I kind of eat instinctively.
right. You and I are on the same page because holidays are coming up, and so a lot of people like to indulge. There's always delicacies and cultural delicacies. I mean,
Yeah,
being an Italian American, I don't care about turkey, to be honest with you. I don't
yeah,
care about cranberry sauce. I don't care about the ham. I don't care about stuffing. Give me my mother's homemade manicotti, manigot. I'm happy. I can eat dozens of those, and I don't
yeah,
care. I go into a coma for a couple of days afterwards. But leading up
exactly.
to it, I'll have some nutrition shakes. I'll increase my water a little bit more. The day after, I watch what I'm eating, and I'll do some more nutrition shakes, and I'll increase my water, and I'll give myself 1 hour where I'm eating. I don't like to sit at the table as we did when I was younger, right? You're sitting at the table for a holiday, and it's like a
Right.
5 hour festival of eating.
Oh yeah.
I'll give myself that 1 hour. Now, what do you think? I mean, you and I were talking about my son, and he was watching a particular movie. It was a
Right.
boxing movie, right? And he just said to me, he goes, Dad, he goes, man, do I want to look like that? I want to, to him, that meant strength and being an athlete and so forth. What do you recommend for younger people wanting to get into bodybuilding or any sport where, your percent body fat is going to go down? What do you recommend? Because you don't want them to get those eating disorders either.
So I usually screen people that are younger, and I've worked with younger clients, and I make sure that they don't have an underlying eating disorder. And I typically won't I'll tell them that they should wait. I feel like sometimes,
Mm-hmm.
that if they get that trigger and they want to start, I don't want to be the one responsible for getting them to go down that path, because there's some things I can be aggressive with some clients that are older, and I'll push the cardio points, and sometimes I don't. Like sometimes I have people that don't do cardio at all. I have a client of mine who is actually 59. She's competing. She looks amazing. She's probably 6% body fat, does no cardio at all. Yeah, does no cardio, just diet. And she responds well to that. And her training is all she needs to do because it's like more like circuit wise. But for a kid, I would say, you know, why are you doing it? I've asked them why. And if they give me a good reason, saying you want to look like that, I'm always like, you know, it takes a lot of work to get there. If you're willing to put in the work, you also understand there has to be some sacrifice too. And what you see muscular wise isn't exactly the most glamorous behind, you know, closed doors.
Yeah, sure.
So,
you know, my son, they did an assessment on him, and part of it was percent body fat. He went to a different hockey team, and you know, they were, you know, how fast he was, you know, skating, and you know, and he was high. You know, he's a bigger boy. He was high. He had like 30% body fat, you know, and they were telling him that they're trying to get him down to 10 to 12% because he could play a little bit, and that would make him stronger and make him faster, and he became very dedicated. And he lost 10% body fat, which was pretty good. Then he had a little bit of a rebound, Cal, where he, you know, he was doing good. You know, you go to sleepaway camp for about a week or so, and you know, all the kids, they're eating pizza and stuff like that. So how do you deal with somebody like that? Because, you know, I kind of let him go a little bit. Right? We just got back from Boston at a tournament. There's bad food, all that. Not because it's Boston. Because you're busy, you don't have time to go to a nice restaurant and sit down.
That's good. You don't, you know, it's good to be a parent that allows somebody to like go to, because I've seen parents that vicariously live through their children, and no offense to anybody that's vicarious, but in my eyes, like it, you know, I've seen people come to me later on in life because they're like, my mother used to call me fat, and my mother wouldn't let me do this, and my mother wouldn't let me do that. And I'm like, wow, I mean, and this person may be in their 40s and they're still messed up from it. So like, I think you need to live a little bit. And I think that when you're younger, it's okay if your body fat's a little higher. There's enough peer pressure out there, and find that it should be up to that child. But in sports, of course, there's always some pressure to lose weight, you know.
Yeah, there's always the pressure to lose weight because you want more skill, you want more agility, speed, and power, and so forth. You know, and I've let him, you know, when he wants to do it, which he does want to do it. It's not that he doesn't want to do it, but you know, like his buddies were, you know, he was hanging out with his buddies a couple of weeks ago. We were down the shore here in New Jersey, and I just, you know, he's like, Dad, he goes, can we have pizza tonight? I said, you had pizza last night? I said to myself, yes. You want to have another slice of pizza? You know, I'll go get it. You know, I'll get 3 or 4 pies for the boys. He's like, no, can you get 6 or 7 because there's more coming over? I said, okay. You know, and you know, I give him that room to breathe a little bit too, because I think that's important, especially if you're a younger athlete.
That's what I'm saying, right?
Yeah, because I love your posts, by the way, because I think they're great. Because there's a picture you'll say of you eating a cookie, and remember, I always comment, I'm like, I'm there with you. Like, you know, it's like you're getting an ice cream sundae. I'm like, Kelly, I'm coming down to Florida. I want an ice cream sundae too. You know, where you going? I'll meet you there, you know? You know, so, you know, you can have that. It's just that you have to be careful depending upon what condition you have. And if you're an athlete, you don't want to get those eating disorders, because I've seen it with my own patients where they can get an eating disorder. And for the older people like me, right? Because you want to relive the younger days. I'm pushing 60. The old man's in pretty good shape, Cal. Okay? He's in pretty good shape. But you know what? I said to myself a couple of weeks ago, I think I want a little more. I really want to do it for my son and for myself, but my son, because, you know, I want to show him that you can do it, and, you know, try to motivate, inspire, and educate him and all of that sort of good stuff. And I have to be careful too, because I can get very regimented in addition. And then there's that whole,
exactly.
You know, there's that whole eating disorder thing that goes on. How do you deal with the older guys like me?
For diet?
You know, if you have a client, they're just a lifestyle. They're not even going on stage.
You always have to know why you're doing it. So if you can describe why when you start, you always go back to that why through the process. And I think that that's the number one thing. So let's say you want this goal, you got to have a goal date too, because if you don't and you're just floating, it doesn't work either.
Right.
So I always tell
It
people,
goes on forever, right? It just goes
oh
and you
yeah,
never
I've
get
seen that
there.
people like, I've seen that happen. Like I have people that are bakers. They have like their own bakeries and stuff like that, and they indulge a couple times during the day, and the progress is like kind of like drags out. So I tell them, I'm like, this is nothing I'm doing. This is, something you have to decide. If you're tempted on this, you need to figure out a way to just have a few days of the week you could do that, not like a little bit here, a little bit there. So always find the goal date. I would say, why you're doing this. And then if it's like somebody that's just a lifestyle client and they don't have a show, you know, just tell them, pick a goal. If you just have to have that goal. That way I can structure it to meet that goal. So I can kind of taper you down in your diet and your
Mhm.
training can like match or
Right.
cardio or whatever. That way you have an actual plan in your hand that makes sense to you. I think everybody needs a little bit of structure. Otherwise, they're kind of just floating.
Right. All right. I think you've just inspired me to go on stage. I don't know.
I
Maybe
don't
I'm
know
going.
how.
Maybe I'm gonna.
I've taken people that never thought they were going to go on stage. I was coaching them in lifestyle, and they have surpassed that. And actually, I have a client and she's a coach now. It's so crazy. She started off as just a lifestyle client, then decided to do a show. She's had 7 kids, and now she's a coach. So
Awesome.
it's
That's
pretty
great.
cool.
Yeah, that's great. So, are you going back on stage?
I am. This year, what happened was I was going to compete this year. Um, having like I had this, I don't know if it's an impingement, something's going on in my pelvic area, where it felt like there was a hernia.
Hmm.
I had a CT scan done, and there's just a pulling sensation. They did a CT, they said they didn't see anything, so they told me that they were going to refer me to a physical therapist.
Yeah, you need to
For
see a good physical therapist, good chiropractor, but you're too far. I can't adjust you through the
No,
Zoom
so
here.
I'm not sure if it's like the psoas or if it's up, there could be something that's more muscular, but it feels odd to do lunges and squats and anything
Hmm.
with pressure, but I can deadlift, which is really strange. I can't lunge. I can do a leg extension. I can
Hmm.
do, but any kind of compression to that abdominal wall
Hmm.
is kind of uncomfortable. So I didn't want to push it. But I'm kind of riding, I'm trying to stay in decent shape. I'm
Hmm.
not planning on doing a show, but like I said, I don't like to get out of shape. Um, so I'm just going to try to keep building my upper body. I have decent legs, so like it's not a big deal. I just need to keep my
Right.
hamstrings engaged. It's frustrating not to be able to train as a whole like
Right.
normally
Like you're
would.
normally doing. Right. Yeah,
Yeah, I have to keep finding it.
because your legs are very strong, right? Would you say that that's your strength?
My legs are one of my strengths, especially
Uh,
on stage. They're a strong point for me. But I've had to build my upper body to match my legs. So it's kind of maybe a blessing in disguise. I don't know.
yeah.
Um,
So, how did you do during the pandemic? What did you recommend to your competitors and to your lifestyle clients? Because CDC says it's 29.6 pounds on the average that they've gained. I think it's more 50 to 60 pounds. I've seen most of my patients. I mean, they just went crazy. You walk into the store and we were talking about this yesterday at the hockey game. Kelly was like, everybody's buying ring dings and yodels and Twinkies because you can't because you're never going to be able to go out in society again. They were saying, and if you
I
if
feel
you got
bad. Like
those,
it's not like that here as much, which is good.
right?
But I understand that. Like I have clients out of state, and I understand what the pandemic has done to people. Like it's been alcohol. A lot of people turn to alcohol for like to get through it. Um, and that weight from that alone, I think
Hmm.
that's also compiled to like careless eating. It's like You're going to go home, you're going to drink this alcohol, whatever. Plus, people are just remotely working now. Like a lot of people are coming to Florida to move here because they can work remote.
Yeah, right,
And,
sure.
so you have that happening, and people work from home, so they don't care. They're not nobody sees them out in, their work center anymore either. So they're drinking alcohol, eating pizza, whatever else they can. So, what did I
So
do during the pandemic?
give me 3 recommendations that you would give somebody, your client, lifestyle competitor, to help them get through a pandemic or to get them to eat better so that they can fuel their body for the course of the day. Because whether you're an athlete or not, you still eat to fuel your body, right? Because you still have to perform, whether you're sitting behind a desk or whether you have a physical job, whether you're laying brick, as my grandfather did, or you're
Yeah.
selling insurance, like my father did, at one point in time. What are give me 3 recommendations for people.
I say start your day off. I would definitely go outside. If you don't have cardio equipment, I would go for a walk. I think getting a little bit of vitamin D from the sun helps with
Absolutely.
your neurotransmitters. It makes you happier. So that would be a number one thing. I did that during COVID. So I would go to the park. At least I could go and get fresh air, which increases
Right.
your oxygen. So
Right.
that's a big deal to me to get going. Like get some activity going.
Even if it's just walking your dog, right?
Right.
Just get
Just
out
go
there.
outside, just do something to get your blood going. Cause I mean, sitting there, a lot of people wake up and they start their day, and it's more like they'll end up putting the TV on and they start watching TV, and then they get lost and they're sitting on the couch or whatever. But if you get moving, at least you can kind of like, kickstart a little bit of circulation and metabolism going a little bit. And then start the day with breakfast. A lot of people do intermittent fasting. I'm not a big fan of that because I feel like it's like a cycle like keto kind of tends to affect people. If you have a tendency to eat a lot of carbohydrates and you go on keto or intermittent fasting, I've seen this so many times. They fall apart. Their diets fall apart because they can't do it.
And a lot of people don't know what intermittent fasting is or how to do
They
it
don't.
And
Or
a
keto.
lot of people don't know what a keto diet is. And
Exactly. They think, and
I'm
I'm like,
keto. I'm keto. What does that
yeah.
mean? I always say
Yeah,
to a
well,
patient,
it's like there's no refeed. If you're truly on keto, you can't refeed
right,
truly because you throw yourself completely out of it. So,
wax it all out of the system, right?
yeah. And a lot of people are like, well, I'm like, you don't realize how low carbohydrates have to be
Right.
on true keto.
To be on a true keto,
To
right?
be on true keto. And it's not really sustainable, like you were saying, for a long period of time. Like any other restrictive diet, it's tough. So have a healthy breakfast, get out, get moving, have a healthy breakfast. And then, if you want to go to the gym or you want to get some equipment, I would do some type of activity for at least 20 to 30 minutes to start, whether it's body weight squats, lunges, anything that gets your complete system going. I think that will help kickstart weight loss,
Yeah, that's important to do. I like that. So get yourself out. I had a patient and you and I were talking about this before, where they weren't going out. They were just going to the mailbox. And I had said to them, listen, it was in the middle of the winter of this year. And I said, just go out. Go to the park. There's a park a half a block away from you. So go to the park and just walk, get your kids. Wear a mask if that's what you want to do. If you don't want to go on the trail, if you want to walk in the middle, I don't care if you take your shoes off. There's snow on the ground. If that feels good and that's how you're going to get grounded, go for it. She called me up crying, Kelly, and she said, oh, that was the greatest advice that you could possibly give me. Right. And she just got out and she was like, she was just like happy that she was able to get out and just get to move around. So I like those 3. So is there anything else that you want to impart from your 20 plus years of being a pro upon the audience here today?
I would say if you want to do something, you got to find your why. And then you have to find out if you are truly intrinsically motivated to do this. because the things that separate someone from being able to become pro is that internal motivation because of the enjoyment and the competition part of it, and just having the nature of achieving something just to say you did it, which has no monetary value. It has nothing else to do with it. That comes with, the territory.
Right.
If you have that passion for it, but you're intrinsically motivated, you don't have to worry about someone being your cheerleader on days that you don't feel like doing it. You literally want to wake up every day.
And you want to do it.
You might not sometimes feel it, but you have this motivation inside of you that
Right.
says, I have this goal. I'm going to finish it. Some people say they have a goal and they start, but they never finish because they're great at starting, but they have the concept, but it's not really something that's inside of them, giving them that. There's nothing giving them that fire.
Yeah, to get up and going. I think we just. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I was saying sometimes like somebody wants to get in shape, but they're not really motivated inside because they just want to try to accomplish it. Somebody might have said, hey, you look fat, so you should get, so that person already has this negative feeling that they're trying to use as their motivation. And then they're going to ask somebody else, hey, do you think I'm losing weight? And if somebody says, well, I haven't noticed anything, then your motivation is not truly coming from yourself. And you're looking for all these other outside sources. And then eventually you're going to get depressed and start eating again.
Yeah, it falls down. I think we just hit our third podcast. In the next several months, we're going to talk about the mental aspect and goal setting and stuff like that. I think that's our next podcast. So, Kelly, it's always a pleasure to speak with you. It's always a good time. It's always a good time. And where can people find you? And you do lifestyle, you do competitors. Where can they find you, Kelly?
On my website, kellylynnfit.com.
Awesome. We recommend Kelly. She's a friend of mine. 100% down the line. Give her a call. If I'm going on stage, I'm calling Kelly. I'm toying with the idea. If not, you're going to get mad. But and who did you go with? You didn't go with me. That's it. No more podcasts for you. And and that's it, right?
Okay. Yeah, that's right.
All right. I got it. I'll call you if I'm going to go on stage, and we'll rock it. So I want to thank you, Kelly. I want to thank everybody for listening today. Give Kelly a shout out. We recommend her. Until the next time, live your best life. Thank you very much, and we'll talk to everybody soon. Take care, Kel.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.